Okay, so I'm making a two-tier naked cake. First, I'm going to even out the layer. That one had a little hump in it. I'm going to put a little icing on the board to make it stick. Then I'm going to ice each layer. The next layer didn't really have a big hump, so I didn't have to cut it or anything. So the last layer also was pretty even, so I didn't have to cut the hump off of it either. Then I rinsed my hands so that I could get all of the extra crumbs from touching the cake pieces off before I started to ice. That's just a personal preference because I don't like to get cake crumbs everywhere. So this is the dirty ice that I'm going to do just to catch the crumb, or the crumb coat as some people call it. So I'm just putting a real thin layer to catch all of the crumbs. And so this is a naked cake, so this is somewhat what it's going to look like. So now I'm going to put another layer of icing now to get more of a clean look, but it's going to be a real thin layer, not super thin, but not too thick either, because again, for the naked cake, you want to be able to see the cake layers through it. So as you can see when I'm putting it on there, and so you see how smooth the buttercream is going on. You want to make sure that your buttercream is not too stiff, but also not too loose either. So if you're making it and it's too hard to spread on there, you just want to put like water, or some people like milk, or some people like creamer, just to smooth it out some. And if it's too loose, you want to add a little more powdered sugar to it, or you can just whip it for a little bit longer to kind of incorporate air in it. Makes it more fluffy. So I've got it around the sides, and now I'm putting it on the top. And right now I'm just using my offset spatula because I'm just getting it on there, but that's not what I'm going to use to smooth it out. So, you don't want to just throw it on there. You want to get it, kind of smooth, but yeah. So there it is. And now I'm going to take my scraper. I got that at the Dollar Tree for $1, and the cooking utensils section. So I'm running it under super hot water, or you can boil some water and dip it in there as you go. But my faucet water gets pretty hot, and I also have a filter, so if your water is not good quality, don't use tap water, boil it. That's why I got a filter for mine. So you're just gonna wet it enough for it to warm up, and then kind of shake some of the excess water off of it, but leave some of the water droplets on there because I found that helps smooth it. So right there I accidentally made a dent in the cake, and so I just went back around and smoothed it back out. So as you can see, the more that I'm smoothing it, I'm kind of like taking some more of the layers off, and so the actual naked look is coming more on it. Excuse my allergies, they're like killing me right now. Yeah, so if you look at the sides, you'll see that they're getting pretty smooth. And then for the top, you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to go from the edge in to bring a nice crisp corner. So it would look a little bit smoother if I were doing like a fully iced cake, but you can still, you still need to have clean sides and edges even for a naked cake. You don't want to be looking raggedy. So every time you see me go over, I'm putting more water, more hot water on my smoother, because if you just keep trying to use the same one over and over again, it'll start to cool off and the icing will start to stick to it. And then the icing that's stuck to it will stick to the icing that's on the cake, and it's going to pull up, and then you're going to have a mess. So, yeah. And every time you scrape, you'll see me going off to the side. You want to make sure that you're cleaning off the scraper before you put it back on the cake. You want to take that extra icing off. So There that is. And then I'm going to put that in the refrigerator and um, cool off. Well, not cool off because it's not hot, but like chill some so that it kind of firms up before I start stacking it. So right here, I'm just cleaning off the edge of the board. I hate when I have, little extra icings or whatever all on the side. So I just take a paper towel and clean it off. And also, because the smoother had a little water on it, sometimes you end up with little droplets of water, and you want to make sure that you take the tip of it and clean that off. So yeah, there it is. And I'm gonna go put it in my cake fridge. So it was in the cake fridge for maybe 30 minutes or so, and now I'm going to dowel the cake. So normally I would just use wooden dowels instead of these like super duty plastic ones, but I ran out of wooden ones and these were the only ones I had, so that's what I used. So I'm going to push down and wiggle it around so that the icing makes kind of a mark on it. So you can kind of see where the icing stops. You want to cut it just below that line because you don't want the dowel to be exactly even with the cake. You want it to be a little bit, maybe like a millimeter below the icing so that once you set the top layer on top, it kind of settles into the cake. I did the top layer of this before I decided to start recording, but it was the exact same way that I did this layer. I did the top layer. So I got one done, and then I'm going to take that same one and I'm going to make 3. So you just kind of even it out on there and then cut it. And you're going to do that 3 times. So after you get your 3, normally I would use 4, but that would be with the wooden ones. But since these are so heavy duty, I'm going to make like a triangle and just do 3 of these. And you want to make sure that you kind of eyeball it. The layer on top is going to be a 6-inch layer. So you want to make sure that the dowels will not be too far out, but also not too far in either. You kind of just, the more you eyeball it, the more more you do it, the more you'll be able to eyeball. So then I'm going to use icing again as a kind of like we did before we put the first layer on the board. This is going to kind of help the top layer attach to the bottom layer. So now I'm going to get the top layer and I'm just going to set it on top, and I accidentally forgot that the camera stopped, and yeah, it's going to cut off me putting the top layer on there. But just so you know, you're just going to take it off of the board. That's a 6-inch board on top of a 12-inch board. And so I just took it off this board and set it on top. And now I'm going to, some of the cake has drip on it. So I'm just using white candy melts. I'm going to stick them in the microwave for about a minute just to, if your microwave cooks fast, only do about 30 seconds because you don't want to overheat the candy melts. And then once you take them out, you're just going to stir them and stir them and stir them until they smooth out. And you see that it's kind of thick. I can't make that into a drip with it being that thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some hot water again, just a little bit, and I'm going to pour it a little bit at a time into the melted candy melts, just a little bit. And you're going to just start stirring it. So at first it's going to look like it's going to try to seize up, which means like it's going to like try to thicken. But the more that you stir it, the more it's going to smooth out. So, and then randomly throughout the mixing, you just want to make sure to be moving around and smoothing out everything. And then you're going to want to test the consistency of it. So that's still not just flowing super good how I want it to. So you see, I'm just barely adding in any water, because if you put too much water, you're gonna have to pour it out and do it all over again. And so this is water ganache that I'm making. Some people use just regular chocolate ganache, where you do the chocolate and the warm cream, but the water ganache works fine for the drip. So, and that's perfect consistency. That's how you want it to drip. It's not too loose and it's not too thick either, because what you want to do is you want it to be able to go down the cake, but you want it to kind of stop, instead of just falling all the way down to the bottom of the cake all loose and stuff. So I'm going to get the cake out of the refrigerator, and just between every step, you want to make sure you leave the cake in the refrigerator, just to kind of preserve it. You don't want the cake getting too hot, or, the more that you mess with it, the more that it's going to move around if the cake is too warm. So you can see now I have the top layer set on top, and I just kind of place it in the center and kind of, not push it down, but just kind of let it settle in there. And so now I'm going to take my piping bag and I'm going to pour the water ganache in the piping bag. Some people use a spoon, but I prefer to use the bag, because I can guide the drip where I want it to go. So just pour it in there, and then once you get it all in there, you're gonna kind of want to take as much air out of the bag as you can, because you don't want to be pouring the drip and then you squeeze and then an air pocket or something comes, because you can end up with a mess. So just kind of, you know, get as much of it out as you can. So squeeze the air out, then you're going to twist it around the top to make sure it doesn't squeeze out, and then you're going to cut the tip of it just very little. I mean, not too little to where you gotta like force it to come out, but you don't want it too big to where it's just like pouring out like a fountain either. So see, that's perfect. So not too big, not too little. And then when you're piping drip, it's all about the pressure. So you want to maintain a constant flow of pressure, for it to come out. But once you get to the areas where you want it to drip, you're just going to barely apply a little more. And if you look at my hand, you can't really tell that I'm squeezing, because it's not like a super squeeze. You're just squeezing just enough pressure for just a little bit more of it to flow out. And so you see how, it's just the right consistency where it's rolling down and it's kind of, stopping. And also because the cake is cool, once the water ganache rolls down on it, it's going to chill as well. And so if you want a longer drip, then you just kind of hold the bag there and it'll drip longer. So that's all I'm doing on the bottom layer. And then on the top layer, I'm going to do the same thing, but on the opposite side of the cake. So same technique. And you see I kind of pull it out some. That's kind of just telling the ganache to move over to the side of the cake. So you're just going to keep going. And it's just going to do a small amount of it, just like I did on the other side. So I know it's weird. You can't see me. I need to get like a body cam so you can see what I'm doing right in front of me. But that's why I'm kind of trying to do it to the side so you all can see. So there's your side drip. So you want to just check it and make sure, that you don't want to add anything, or that, there isn't a void space that you need to fill in. And if you're okay with it, you can go put it back in the refrigerator. If not, like I'm doing, I decided I wanted to put a little more drip. Just, go and add it as you can. But you always want to make sure, again, it's very important that you put the cake back in the refrigerator after each step. And for here especially, because I'm going to be painting the drip gold, and so I need it to be firm. So I'm going to go back and put it in my fridge. And I have a cake fridge, so nothing goes in there except for cakes. So I don't have to worry about, the smells of onions or whatever getting into the cake. So if you have to put it in your refrigerator, you want to make sure that there's nothing in there like celery or cilantro or, pickles, anything that would be open and that the cake can soak up the smell of. So there's sometimes smell and taste that will soak up into the cake. So I have a cake fridge that nothing goes in every cake. So now I'm getting my highlighter gold dust, and I use Everclear to make my paint. So I'm just going to put very little in there, and then I'm going to mix it around. Because after it's alcohol, so it dries up after a while of just sitting there. So just gonna wet it a little bit. It comes in a powder form, and so I have two bottles. One bottle keep as a mixing bottle, and the other one is where I have the powder. And just as that one empties out, I put more powder in. So now I'm also putting flowers. So these are fake flowers, and so I'm just taking the toothpick through the top of it. I'm gonna do the the skinny side in first, so that the big side goes and stops, so that it stays in the flower. And then I'm going to just add some leaves down at the bottom. And then I'm just going to do that to, however many flowers I need. So got the cake back out and it's chilled. So you see I'm touching the drip and it's not coming off on my hand. So it's good to go. So I have my paintbrush, and so you want to make sure that the whatever paintbrush or utensils that you use for cake, that's the only thing that you use it for. So you don't cross contaminate things. And I don't care if you wash it or whatever first, don't do that. Just only for cakes. If you want to paint, only for painting. So you're just going to carefully paint over the drips until it's all covered. And don't want to rush, but you also don't want to go too slow to where it starts to, the paint starts to dry out and you're having to constantly put more Everclear in it. And you don't have to worry because the Everclear dries out. So it's not like you're going to be feeding, whoever the cake with alcohol, because it dries out and you don't even know that it was alcohol. And also most edible powder, coloring highlighter does, it says edible, but it's not meant for you to just eat just because. Kind of like crayons are, non-toxic. If you eat it, you're not going to die. It's kind of the same idea, it's mostly for decoration. So if you're ordering a cake or something that's got gold pieces on it, don't suggest you eating the pieces that are gold. So it's not going to kill you. Your body can digest it, but it's not meant for you to eat. Some people like to get like candy apples and stuff completely covered in gold. It's not going to kill you. Your poop might be a little shiny for a few days, but it's not technically meant for you to eat. It's meant for more of a decoration purpose. So you're not going to die, but I mean, it's not really going to add any nutritional value either. So you just want to paint it until it's all covered like that. So now that I've got them, I'm going to just check and make sure that I've covered all the spaces, make sure there are no white pieces still showing. And if they are, just kind of touch them up. Make sure the sides of it are completely covered, because sometimes you'll be painting the front and the side gets missed. So now that you got that, you're going to add the final touches, which are the flowers. And so before you push the flowers in there, you want to make sure you know what you're thinking you want it to look like, because sometimes if you put the flower in there and try to pull it out, there'll be like a noticeable hole in the cake. So you can't really adjust it. So for this one, they sent me an inspiration picture, so I kind of knew where I wanted, everything to go already. So, And the toothpicks just kind of help it to stay on the cake. It's no big deal, really. So, and you just want to give it a nice firm push. Not don't jab it into the cake to where it falls apart, but you just want to make sure that you're sticking it in there enough to stay. And so there you have it. A 2-tier naked cake with gold drip and flowers.